Hello friends and families, once again welcome to Armstrong Computers channel. Today's segment we are going to focus on how to build a desktop app. So far as calculator is concerned, how we can code a calculator, put it together, and we are going to focus on how to pull this as you can see on your screen. But at the end of the day, the whole stuff is going to focus on some kind of like three video series, which is going to be like a course series where we are going to focus on how we can code this calculator, and at the end of the day we'll put it together by creating a desktop application using some couple of tools so far as Inno and also PHP desktop Chrome is concerned. Without wasting my time, let me show you now. As you can see on your screen, this is the calculator that we are going to focus on. For instance, when you see, like first, when I key 9 plus 7 is equal to what? Is equal to 16. I can click on the delete and it will go off. When I go like let's say it's 3 times 1 and equal to, it give me 3. So this is what we are going to code. We can go like let's say 2.1 plus 1. Okay, that will give us what? Equal to, that will give us 3.1. So basically that is just that. So you can also go by saying, let's say plus, okay, plus, let's say 0.1 is equal to what? Is equal to what? 3.2. So basically that is just that. Let's look at how we can code it together without wasting much time. Let's get started. Now welcome back. First, because we are going to focus on how to use HTML and CSS to build a calculator, first we need to know what HTML is. One thing about HTML, okay, HTML is an acronym which stands for hypertext markup language. So HTML is an acronym which stands for hypertext markup language, okay, which is used for creating web pages and web applications. Now, as I just said, we are going to focus on how to use HTML and CSS to create a desktop application. Now we know what an HTML is. Let's look at the next thing. The next one I'd like us to focus, what is CSS? Now, one thing about CSS simply means cascading style sheet. Cascading style sheet. It is used to style HTML elements. So for you to, now there are two ways in writing a CSS in HTML, and I'm teaching you how to write external CSS and inline CSS. Without wasting my time, let's get started by looking at what is an external CSS and inline CSS as far as writing these codes are concerned. So let's look at that. Okay, so back to my screen, let's create a folder. So I'm going to just go ahead and right click on my desktop, and as you can see, I'll just go to new, and when I go to new, I'll just click on folder. Done. Then I'll type the name as Armstrong calculator, as you can see here. Now after I'm done, the next I'm going to do, I'm going to go straight to my text editor known as Sublime Text. And if you are new here, as I just said, I'll be leaving a link here. I cover a video on types of text editors, so you can just go there and then take a recap of that and download any of the text editor that you think is good for you. Now moving on, I'll just switch to my text editor. Now, as in my text editor, now as I said, I want to throw light on inline CSS and external CSS. Okay, how we can create an inline CSS. As I said earlier on, that CSS is used to style HTML elements. Okay, so let's look at how that is being done. But first, let me save my web page, okay, in the folder that I have created. To do that, just go straightly click on File and look through the File menu, click on Save As, and then locate your desktop. As you can see here, where we have organized, I'll select my desktop, and you can see here I have Armstrong calculator. I'll double click on that, and I'll go ahead and give it a name as index. So index.html, and I'll go ahead and click on save. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is do my doc decoration. So it's going to be, I'll bring my tag, so HTML, done. And I'm going to give a name to my page as Armstrong calculator, as you can see here. Then I'll move ahead press enter. Okay, so let's look at how to create the inline and the external CSS. So to do that, I'll just bring my header 1 tag, and in my header 1 tag I'll type my favorite sentence, that is the boy is going to school. BOY is so as I just type the boy is going to school now I want to style this. Now I'm going to focus on me changing the color of this to color red. Now to do that, I have to put the cursor in between here where I have, how do you call it, the style. You see we have header here and I have the close tag of the header. So I'll put the cursor at the end point of the words of the title, press enter, and I'll go ahead and type what, and type style. So after typing style, in between here, you see this is the opening tag of my style and this is the closing tag of my style. Now in between my style, I'll press enter. So we are focusing on looking at our inline CSS. So let's get how that is being written. So here, I want to change the color of this to color red. So I'll go ahead and then type call my header. So this is the header. So I'll say header 1 and bring my curly bracket, press enter, and I'll go ahead and type what the attribute so far as the color is concerned. So I'll go ahead and say color and I'll say color red. Save that. Now when I open my web page, the boy is going to school is going to display red. So this is another example of writing what's inline CSS. So as you can see on your screen, you can see that the boy is going to school is now red. Now, taking that from the way, let's focus on how we can create external CSS. To do that, it's just simple. As I am in my text editor, I'll go ahead and open a new page. But before then, let me take this off. And I'll click on File and click on Save. Then I'll go back to my web page, refresh that, and it is black, as you can see. Okay, so let me go back to my text editor. So back to my text editor, I'll click on File and click on New. So after clicking on File and clicking on New, I'll go ahead and save this as style. So how do we do that? So after that, I'll go ahead and click on File and click on Save As, and then as I just said, it's new, so that's why I'll go click File, click on Save As, and then I'll give it a name as style.css. So style.css. Press enter. Then after that, I'll go ahead and link this CSS to my HTML. So in between here, I'll type link. So in my link, I'll type the href. The href talks about my style. So remember, I spelled it to S-T-Y-L-E. So that's how I'm going to go to it. So it's going to be STYLE.css. I'll click on File and click on Save. So now I've linked my style to my HTML. So now to style the boy is going to school, what I need to do is I just have to go directly and go to style and just write my code. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call the header in my external CSS. So in the header is going to be H1 and bring my curly bracket, and I'll say color, C-O-L-O-R, and I'll say color red. Save that. In my browser, when I refresh, you can see it is red. Now let's say I wanted to put this text to the center. So how do we do that? I'll go directly to my text editor. Then I'll put the cursor here, press enter, then I'll say text align. Then I'll say center. Done. When I save that and I come to my browser and refresh, you can see that the boy is going to school is centered. Have you seen that? So basically, that is how to write internal and external CSS. Now, before we continue, let me just go and change my address, and I'll come with you and we continue by building our desktop app. Go ahead and then declare your div. So in between my div, I want to give a class to my div. So I'm going to call the class, let's say we call the class as Lolo. So here I'm going to base on using form to create my calculator, okay, with the help of the inputs control. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to bring my form element, which is my form tag. So in my form tag, I'd like to give my form a name. And this name, I'm going to call it CAC. Done. So if you've done this, then you are with me. Now the next one I'd like us to focus on is we are going to go ahead and then use an input where we want the calculator to display that when we key in stuff, that will be displayed in the calculator. Let's look at how that is being done. So to do that, go ahead and bring the input. So this is my input, and my input type is going to be text. Then my name is going to be display. Display. Done. So I'll save that. Now when I open my web page, now as we've done this, let's open our web page to see how it will display or what will display on the web page. So as my index file is open, as you can see on your screen, you can see this is our calculator that we are looking at, and this is what I will do. So you can see that this very side here, when I clean anything that I click on, it display on the here. So and that is what we just did here. Okay, so you can go ahead and type something and that will be displayed. So basically that is just that. So therefore, back to my Sublime Text, and I'll just put the cursor here at the end point of my input. Press enter. But for then, let me bring a tag known as break. Which is in between my display. I'll go ahead and bring another input. Which this input, I'm going to call the input type a button. Button, and I'm going to change the name to variable. So highlight here and say value. So the value is going to be let me call this value, let's say 9. Okay, so stay put. I want to explain something. Now when I come here and I say 9, so the value, the bottom here, the bottom is going to be 9. Let me show you something. Let's go back to the web page and I'll explain something to you. Now in the web page here, you can see, because I see that I did not refresh, so let me refresh my page. So you can see we have 9 here. When I click on 9, the 9 will not display, so the bottom is created known as 9. But I'm going to use something we call on click, meaning that when I click on the line, I give a name to this bottom as CAC. Okay, so when I click on the 9, I want that 9 should display here, okay, in the display. So let's look at how that is being done. Let's go back to the text editor and do that. So in the text editor here, as you can see, what we are going to do is we're going to go ahead and say on click, which means when I click on it. Okay, so on click, I want it to display on the CAC. Okay, so it's going to display in the form, and in the form we have the display, which is the input. So I'm going to copy this. She should display in the in the CAC dot display here, and paste that here. And what should display in that? What I would like it to display here must be a value. And what is that value? And that value is is 9. So it's going to be dot value which is plus and equal to, so one quote and another quote, and in between the quotes that will be 9. Okay, so the moment I click on the bottom 9, that is going to display here in the input display. Okay, so let's save that, and let me go to my browser for you to see what we just did. So in my browser here, I'll refresh that. And when I click on 9, you can see it is displaying here. 9999 it is displaying. Okay, so that is the meaning of what we just did. Okay, so I'll just go to duplicate and copy that, paste it, and then change its values. Are you sure you're getting it? So let's look at that. So as you can see in my text editor, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy this and press enter and paste, enter and paste, enter and paste. So I have 1 2 3 4. Okay, so that becomes 4. I shall get it. So I'm going to change here to 8 and change it also to 8. Change here to 7. It's 987 here also to 7, and the last one have to be plus. That's what I want, plus, and here also have to be plus. So the moment I save, so let's save that, click on file and click on save. So let's go to our browser and test all this whether it is working. So in our browser here, when I refresh my page, you can see, so we have what, 9871. So everything is working perfectly. Okay, so basically that is just that. So you can see that it is too close. Okay, so let's bring it down. Let's bring a space in between here. So we are going to use something, an element called tag. Let's go to the text editor and do just that. So as we are in the text editor, see we have break here already. So I'll bring another break. Done. So that to create a space more. So when I save that, so after saving that, let's go ahead and continue with what we are doing. So I'll put a cursor here, press enter, and bring another break. Bring my break tag and press enter. I want the break should be 2, of course. Done. So I'll come back here and copy from my input button from here to here, copy that, put a cursor down here, press enter 2 times, paste that. Then after that, I'll go ahead and do some changes. So what are those changes that I would like to do? So the changes is I'll change the 9. So let's change it from here now. So here will be 6. Here also will be 6. So here I'm going to make it 5. And here also will be 5. Change here to 4. Here also 4. And that was going to be my minus. And here is going to be my minus 9. So I'll go ahead again, put a cursor down here, press enter 2 times, paste again. So the next after minus, I'll go by saying, so here is going to be my 3. And 3 2. So here is going to be my 1, then my multiplication, so that is that. So I'll put a cursor here again, press enter 1 2, paste again, and I'm going to change here to, let's say, 0. And change here to maybe my division sign. Change here to my percentage. And change here to my equal to. Okay, so this is that. Now we will be doing something here that I'd like you to pay attention. Now, what we would like to do is that we wanted to do some calculation here. That when we click on the button known as equal to, when we click on it, it should then go ahead and put all what is inside the display together by calculating it. I shall get in it. So we'll be doing some changes here. So what we'll be doing is that, you can see that we have calc.display or calc, okay, display.value. So we are going to then go ahead and then copy from here and say equal to, and we are going to say ev evaluate nicely. And what are we evaluating? So we are evaluating the same thing, so we should calculate all this value, okay, in the bracket. So you should evaluate that so far as calculation is concerned, and in the bracket, and that should depict that. Simple as ABCD. So this simply means that when we click on the equal to sign, this equal to sign should go ahead and echo, okay, whatever that we have entered in the display here, okay, should echo it. So when we do this, then let's try it to see whether our equal to sign is performing the calculation for us. Okay, so to do that, let's switch to our browser. So in our browser, let's go ahead and refresh. So everything is okay. So we go like 9 plus 1 is equal to 10. So the echo has not echoed the calculation that whatever we key in here should be displayed. Should go ahead and refresh again. So whatever we key in here, like 9 plus 4, you should echo that by calculating it to give us 13. Now you understand this. Let's go ahead and bring our dot here and our delete button. So in my text editor, I'll go ahead and then put a cursor here, and then let me copy this. Let's copy this too. It's okay. Copy that and press enter. So after we press enter here, let's bring something called div container again. So let's bring our div container, and I'll explain something to you. And in my div container, I like to give it a class here, and the class I want to call this, let me call this as costs. Okay, so cost. So in between here, I'll bring a button. This is the button I copied. Press enter. So in this button, I'm going to call the first button as dots, and here is going to echo dots. So I'm going to give it a class also. I'm going to give the dot a class. Okay, why do I want to give this a class? Because I want to change this dot button to a different color, so I need to give it a class so that in the CSS it will just work fine for me. So I'll bring the mouse pointer here, space that, and say instead of class, let me give it an ID. So it's going to be ID. So in this ID, I'm going to call it skin. Okay, then I'll come to the next button here. Okay, this next button here. Then I'll go ahead and change here to the value to delete. Delete. So it's going to be D-E-L-E-T-E. Delete. Okay. Then after that, I'm going to go ahead and echo. Now, when I click on the delete, I don't want the delete to display anything. Okay. What I want the delete to display is blank, nothing. So which means that if you want a button not to display anything, you just have to, in between where we have value plus equal to, just empty that side. So when you click on it, that button becomes empty. So nothing displays. So here, I also give it a class because I wanted to expand the delete a little bit. So I'll go ahead and give it an ID. So, and that ID, I'm going to call it DEL. So I'll go ahead and click on file and go ahead and click on save. So after that, let me switch to my browser. So after switching to my browser, as you can see, I'll go ahead and refresh. Done. So when I press 874 and I click on delete, it clears, it becomes blank. Well, it's not active. Well, that's a mistake. Let's go back and correct that. So back to our text editor. Now there's a problem because when I click on delete, it's not active. So let's get what's the problem. So when we see the delete here, this is the delete. So I have input type button value, and I say the value is delete, and I said on click, once we click it, it should echo display and value, and it's going to be plus. So I have to take this plus off. So it's going to be equal. So that's the problem. So take the plus off here, click on file, click on save, and let's switch to our browser. So after we are back to our browser, I'll go ahead and refresh. So now when I press 8, 7 and press the delete, now the delete is working. So point is working. So let's say delete, it goes. So 1 times 1 is equal to 1. So 1 times 2, okay, let me delete again. So 1 times 2 equals to what? 2. So we go like 1 plus, okay, 22 plus 1 is equal to 23. So it's working perfect. So when you also do this and your calculator is responding, then you are on course. Okay, so now we are okay with this. The next one I'd like us to look at is, let's look at how we can use the CSS to style our HTML. As we said that CSS is used to what? To style HTML elements. So in our text editor, as you can see, I'll go ahead and screw up. Now remember that I have two tabs in my Sublime Text. So I have my index and my style sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and then style my calculator. So to style your calculator, just go directly. Remember that we've linked the style sheet already. So go ahead and click on the style. So as we are in the style.css, we'll go ahead and start to style out our page. So I want to call my body. So I just call my body and I'll give it a background. So the background color, I want to use Armstrong color here. So that will be 00080. Okay, so let me 0080. Okay, that is Armstrong color here. So that's the background. So it's kind of like a move color. So let's look at that. Let's go to the browser and look at how it will display. So in the browser, when you refresh, you can see this is our color. How cool is that? Okay, so let's go ahead. Now we are going to size this, okay, and we will size this and then we are going to call 8 and then work on it. Now what are we going to style? What are we going to work on? I want to put the whole thing here to the middle. Okay, so how do we do that? Let's go to our style sheet and start to style our HTML element. So in my text editor, I'll go ahead and perform the following. So here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and do box sizing. So I'll bring my box sizing, so style, and say bring my curly bracket. Then I'll say box sizing. So my box sizing should be border box. Nicely. We are done here. So the next one I'd like us to do that, let's come down here, and now we are going to call in our style. Remember that we call the div container here as Lolo. So we are going to call this Lolo in the style. So I'll copy that because I wanted to put the entire labels, the buttons and then the input control to the middle. So here I will say dot what Lolo. I'll bring my curly bracket, then I'll give it a width. So the width, I'll make it 400 pixels. Then I'll go ahead and do the margin, and I'll do the margin auto. Then I'll go ahead and do the heading, and I'll also do the heading also auto. Then I'll do padding. Then I'll say that the padding should be 15 pixels. Then after that, the next thing I'll be doing, I'll go ahead and then work on the background. Well, the background should be color red, but that's what we did. So background color should be red. Save that, and let's go to our web page to see what we'll be getting. So in our web page, when I refresh, you can see everything is in the middle. How cool is that? Now, taking out from the way, the next one I'd like us to look at is, let's look at how we can size this input. Okay, this input, when we click on it, we want to size it. Okay, so let's get that. Let's go back to the text editor and put that in order. So in our text editor, what we are going to do is just simple. What is that simple thing? Now, when we come to our HTML, remember that here in the inputs, we call it what? Input. And what is the input type? The input type is text. Okay, so we don't want it to be like kind of like text. So I'm going to copy this and come to my CSS, press enter. Then I'm going to paste that. Where I'm going to, let me take off this. Where I'm going to put this in what? In a bracket. Closer to my input. And put this also in a bracket. And with my current bracket, then I will say the width of my display should be 100%. And then the padding should be 10 pixels. So take it down from the way I'll want to size it, to give it a font size. So it's going to be a font size. So that to be a little bit bigger. Font size is here. So I want the font size to be 20 pixels. Then I want the border radius. Before we come to the border radius, let's save this. Click on File and click on Save. So here, with the display, we've increased the width to 100% and the padding in which the cursor should display should be kind of like 10 pixels. And the font size, so far the text display is concerned, should be what? 20 pixels. Now let's switch to our browser to see what we are going to get. Then I'll refresh that and you can see how cool is that. So when I click, look at how big it is. So that's the font size. Now let's work on the border radius, where I would like us to shape, style the edges a little bit. Let's style the edges of the display here a little bit. So let's switch. So you can see here now everything is nice and slow. It has opened widely, and when we click on it, you can see that it is open nicely. Okay, so basically that is just that. Now I would like us to work on the border radius, where I would like us to style the edges like this a little bit around the rectangle. So let's look at that. So as we are in the text editor here, so I'll go ahead and then bring the border radius. So I'm going to say border. Okay, so border radius, and I'm going to do the border radius 5 pixels. So when I save this and go to my browser, okay, the edges of my display is going to be rounded. Let's look at that. So as I am on my web page, when I refresh that, you can see that it is rounded, the edges. So how cool is that? It is rounded. So basically that is just that. Now let's switch to, as I am in my text editor, I'll go to my CSS here, and again I'm going to remember that in the HTML we call the input here type bottom. So I'm going to call this, I'll copy that, go to my style, press enter and paste that. So I'll take off the quote here and take off this quote, bring my close brackets, close bracket here, bring it closer to my input, then I'll bring my current bracket. So we are going to work on the bottom. So working on the bottom, what we are going to do is that we are going to adjust the width of each bottom. So it's going to be width, and the width of the bottom we are going to make it 30%. If possible, you can make it 30, or let's make it 89. So 89%. And let's do the padding. The padding is padding, okay? So let's do the padding 10 pixels. And let's do the font size, should be 12 pixels. Let's do the border radius. And let the border radius be 5 pixels. Let's save that. Then after that, I like us to go directly to our browser. So in our browser here, when I refresh, look at the bottom, okay, look at it and see what will happen. When I refresh, you can see the bottom is widely open. How wide it is, so big, of course. So that is the bottom. So big, so big. You see how big it is. Well, that is the bottom, but don't worry, we are going to size it so that it is to fit in. So let's switch back to our text editor. So in our text editor, you can see that there is a mistake that we did, which is a very big mistake. Now you can see that here, the bottom here, we made it, instead of 89 pixels, we make it what, 89%. So let's change the percent to pixels. Browser and refresh, we said everything will be normal. Let's try that. So when I refresh, you see that everything is normal. How cool is that? So when I click on my 9 plus 7 equal to everything is okay. Now let's go ahead and then work on the dot button and the delete button also as well. So in here, now remember that in our button here, we called this particular button here, we give it a div container, and that div container, we call it what? We call it cost. Okay, and we call the delete also what? Kin. So let's work on each one after the other. So I'm going to call the cost. I gave it an ID, and the ID I gave it, the name I give to ID is what? Is kin. So I'm going to call this kin. I'll copy the kin and go to my style, press enter. Now because I give it an ID, to call it in my CSS, I need to use what? Hash, like hashtag. Okay, then I'll bring my curly bracket, then I'll give it a width. So the width, I want to make the width let's say 30%, and go ahead and give it a background color. So let's say background. So I want the background color of the dots. Okay, I want the color should be the same background color I used for my work. So I'll copy that, come down here and paste that there nicely. Then after that, I want the text color, so color, that will be the text color. I want the text color should be color white. So that's going to be that's a HWI WIT, don't mind me. Save that. And after saving that, now let's go to my browser and see how everything will look like. So as I am in my browser, I'll go ahead and refresh, and you can see the color here of my dot is now what? Like my background color. So basically that is just, I'll click on delete and everything is okay. Now let's go ahead and work on the delete also as well. Okay, to expand it to fill this side. Let's look at that. So as I am in my text editor, I'll press enter. So after pressing enter, remember that the delete also, we give it a class, we give it an ID known as del here. So I'll copy that, come to my class and use hashtag and call my del, and bring my curly bracket, press enter. So here I'm going to change the width. So the width of my delete, I want to make it what? 70%. And when I go ahead and then switch to my browser, let's look at how it will look like, and refresh, you can see that it is open and it is here. But I don't want it to be here, so I need to use something called flex. I want to do display flex. So when I use the display flex, it's going to kind of like open here widely, nicely. Everything is going to be here. So let's get how that is being done in the text editor. So as I am in my text editor, remember that the delete, I give it a name as, I give it a class name as, they are all in a div container called costs. Okay, so I'm going to call the cost in the CSS. I'm going to highlight on the cost, copy that, and go to my style, press enter to find my CSS and say dot what? Cost. Then I'll bring my curly bracket, press enter. So what I'm going to say, I'm going to say display. Okay, so it's going to be display, then I'll say flex, that is it. Save that. Now when I switch to my browser, you can see that, let's switch to my browser for me to explain something for you guys to understand. So in my browser here, you can see that this is the dot and this is the delete. So the flex will just make the delete to be flexible and it will fall in this side. So when I refresh, you can see it has fallen this side nicely. So that is what it is. Okay, so basically that is when I click on 4 plus 1 and I say equal to, it give me 10. When I press delete, it goes off. So basically this is this brings us to the end of today's section, and the next video we are going to focus on how we can turn this whole thing into a desktop app. Okay, catch you in the next lesson. Bye bye.